YouTube, what up? This is Levi Jaeckel,
Nate Carpenter.
and this is episode number 1 of whatever we're gonna call this. We'll think of a name. If you have a name for us, leave it down in the comments. We decided to do this outside. It's a great spring morning, so we're out here in the prison yard. For those of you guys that are unfamiliar with our setup, we run a gym in Tampa, Florida. We have an indoor weight room, all that good stuff, and then outside we call this the prison yard because it's super rough and tumble out here. But it's a great morning, so we just decided to bring the show outside, filming outside, enjoying some vitamin D. Feels good.
Feels real good. Always good to get outside.
So basically, what we got going on here, we're gonna do a little Q&A action. So we train a whole bunch of different people. We train pro athletes, we train local adults, we train college athletes, high school athletes. So we kind of train all over the gamut. We've received a lot of questions. Randomly, I'll just get like questions through the website or whatever, where people hit me up, either on Instagram as well. And there has been a theme in a couple questions. People have asked us, like, how do we get into training pro athletes? And I have a very kind of unique question, or unique answer to that question. I think training pro athletes is flashy, right, and it gets a lot of attention. We do train them, but you know, the majority of our training throughout the year is with local adults. So I think kind of to answer that, this is always an answer that I don't think people are looking for, but the way to do that is like wherever you're at. So I remember, I think one of the kids that sent me an email, he was in college in Vancouver, and he's asking me about pro athletes, and we didn't talk about what sport or anything like that. He just said, like, how do I train pro athletes? And I told him, like, you need to find whoever's in your area, training pro athletes or training the population that you want to be working with, and you just need to go spend as much time as their facility as you can. So helping them out in whatever way you're possible. So if you don't have like experience training with pro athletes, there's no way that they're going to train you or trust you to train them. Obviously, that's their career. Their body is their career, and they're not going to just take a chance that you happen to know what you're doing with their career. So find somebody in your area that's training the people that you want to train, and spend as much time with them as possible. You're going to learn a lot, first of all, but then you're also going to kind of gain a little bit of trust with that population group.
I mean, it's grueling, but you got to be willing to put in the hours, because it's going to be unpaid work, but it's what you have 100%. To do to get to that next level.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in college. I couldn't reiterate this enough. Use the free time you have. Get as many internships. Shadow as many people. Just make as many connections as you can within your area, because you'll be that much better off when you're getting out.
Yeah. So Nate, both of us can testify to this. So Nate, I mean, he did intern here, but
so to answer your question,
yeah.
That's how I train pro athletes, is because I met this guy. But primarily, I came from a different background, so I did internships. I personal trained in college. But another one of the things I did, another route that I went, is I did a little bit of research within the Human Performance Lab at the University of Tampa, which got me in connections with a strength coach and things like that, where I got to meet him, work with some of the teams at UT, which ended up perfect. And then I ended up meeting you when I was in grad school through just a friend of mine who referred you to me. I came in one day, kind of just explained my situation, said, I'm willing to put in X, Y, Z, I'll put in these hours, what can you offer me? And obviously this is something that came along with it. It wasn't something specifically like, oh, I need to train pro athletes, this or that, but it obviously was that added bonus that you had because you already had been training. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, and the way that I started training pro athletes is I started with an internship as well. So, I mean, my path was a little bit different. I moved. I was going to school at University of New Mexico, and I moved cross country. I moved to, well, not really, but I moved to Dallas for an internship, an unpaid internship, and I was there for 6 months, totally unpaid. Like every single part of it was unpaid. And we exclusively trained pro athletes at that facility. But then once I had that internship, I was kind of recruited out of that program for an established gym here in Tampa that was training pros. They needed help. So I worked for them for a year and then started my own thing. But it all started with an internship. And this is another thing too. I mean, people are always like the conversation of, do I need to go to school? Do I not need to go to school? Do I need to take an exercise physiology program or an exercise science program? I have very mixed emotions about this because, like, the stuff that I learned in school, I don't use the physiology and the anatomy that I was taught in school on a daily basis here. That background is very important. But on the flip side, there's no way I would have landed the internship that I had without going to school. So the internship really taught me like the programming methodology, and they taught me kind of the exercise sequencing and the stuff that we do use on a daily basis, but I never would have had that opportunity for the internship if I hadn't gone to school. So school led to the internship led to a career. I don't know, that's just kind of how it goes, I guess. Especially this industry. I think strength and conditioning, like, internships are critical. So if you're not doing internships, if you're not working for free, I'm not really sure.
That's one thing I think some people don't realize, though. You can't just get out of college. A lot of people want to work for a sports team, want to work for a professional team. You can't get that job unless you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. Otherwise, they won't even look at you. Mm-hmm. It's one of those deals. You could know as many people as you can, but if you don't have that experience beforehand, whether in school directly, out of school, before you try to land that next gig, it's going to be pretty difficult too.
Yep. So how long did you know, or did you enter the exercise science program anticipating a career training athletes?
I mean, I figure that's what everyone that's an ex-athlete kind of has in the back of their mind. Is the woulda, coulda, shoulda kind of deal, where you wish you learned how to train, you wish you learned how to do all this, but I kind of realized it towards the end. That's what I really wanted to do, because what I was truly passionate about. But I didn't say I would go into school knowing that, but it definitely popped up, and then once I realized it, I got to hammer that opportunity. Yeah. That's when internships came into play. Yeah. And that's when towards honestly junior, senior year of my college career, I realized I had to put in the time now. Yeah. I mean, I should have been doing it for the years prior, and I honestly didn't as much. It was more or less making connections, friends, things like that in the area. Yep. And then once I had all that settled, I was comfortable in a new area. That's when I just branched myself out completely. Yeah,
he moved into Tampa. You're from the Northeast, yep. So you moved down to Tampa to go to college. So it's not like he had this huge network of people to rely on. He had to build that from scratch.
Neither of us did.
Yeah, both of us did. And as far as, I don't talk about this a whole lot, but so I'm from Iowa. Like, I grew up in Iowa. Iowa doesn't have a professional sports team in any of the major sports. So there's no hockey, there's no baseball, there's no football, there's no basketball. Iowa doesn't have a pro team. And then specifically where I'm from in Iowa, it's just a little farm town. So like the thought of, like, you're growing up in this little farm town of 2,000 people, graduating in a class of 48. Like, the thought of training a pro athlete is so foreign that like, that's not really something that you think of.
Let alone baseball too.
Yeah, baseball for sure. Yeah, and then on top of that, like, we've got a pretty solid group of pro baseball players that spend their off season with us, and I'm not a baseball guy at all. Like, I didn't play baseball, I didn't watch baseball. Like, my dad didn't watch baseball. Like, we weren't fans, we didn't have a team. Like, baseball was basically, like, irrelevant to us. Like, didn't really watch it, didn't really hate it, nothing. Like, it was just like a no part. Like, we're big NFL fans. Like, I was a big basketball fan. Baseball was just kind of indifferent, and here we are.
How would you say, so coming to Tampa, because people that aren't from the area, so how did you get into baseball? Obviously, with all like the teams around and everything that people don't realize.
Yeah. So baseball, or Tampa's definitely a hot spot for baseball. A lot of those guys spend their off season here. Whether it's there's a bunch of spring training, there's a bunch of spring training teams here.
Minor league.
Yeah, minor league teams are based here too. So there's a lot of reason for baseball players to be in the area. The way that started was with one guy, with Jay Cave. So it was one guy, his girlfriend actually referred him to me, so she knew me. Like I had trained her, she was an athlete, I had trained her. When they started dating, she had him call me, and I literally worked with one guy. And it was one guy. He trained, it was a one-on-one training environment for 3 months probably. And you know, once all of his teammates came back into the area for spring training, like he brought in a couple guys. He was happy with the off season. The next off season he came back and he brought teammates. We used that connection then to reach out to his strength and conditioning coaches within his organization. So we started talking within the organization. You know, one of the, like, it's just how it works, right? So like, okay, so now we have a relationship with one organization, and one of those strength coaches gets moved to another organization, and so now all of a sudden we have contacts in 2 organizations. Meanwhile, one of his teammates gets traded, so now we have a contact in 3 organizations. So it's not something that we were like, you know, we weren't door to door knocking on their office door trying to get in with them. It was just, you get an opportunity to train one guy, you do a good job.
Capitalize.
Yeah, and you use his network, you know, hopefully you do a good job, you know, and you build that relationship that he does trust you enough to refer his trusted network to, and you know, you just, over the course of 4 years, you know, it kind of builds into something a little bit more sustainable. But and that goes, I mean, that's so true. That's the true path for even our adult clients, right? So you train one adult client. Okay, where do you work? You start talking to their coworkers, or you start talking to their bosses, or you start talking to, you know, whoever. Like you start talking to the guys in their church groups or whatever, you know, in all of their different circles of people, and just make it work.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, to summarize everything, you just gotta put yourself out there. I mean, I just reached out to him when I was in school, told him I was just looking to shadow him, pretty much intern, help whatever way I can, and I think that's what business owners and people like yourself are interested in. That's what they want.
Yeah,
they want to show that you're committed to the work and not just to what comes with it, as in working with pro athletes, working with clients that aren't your own, and things like that. So I mean, putting yourself out there has got to be the number one thing. Connecting with as many people in your area. Free work. Be willing to work for free. Work your butt off, and opportunities will arise. For sure.
For sure. Yeah, and that's for any industry. I mean, if you're into marketing, you need to go find the best marketing agency in your area and spend as much time in their office as you can. You know, be useful. Okay, so we, you know, just kind of jamming on kind of how we got to where we're at. So now we got a question for you, and that question is, what are you doing to separate yourself from people in your industry now? So what's either you're kind of on the path right now, like what have you done to get there? What were some of the things that you did to get into the position that you're at now, or what are you planning on doing? So let us know in the comments below what you're doing to push your own career forward, and look forward to talking to you guys next week.